Hierarchical structure of MyBatis configuration file in MyBatis. Here you can see the hierarchical structure of MyBatis configuration file. Basically, we need to master the configuration of nine top level elements, including tags orange, red, because it involves plugin unit and dynamic SQL plugin in configuration can be applied to pagination and function enhancement. Dynamic SQL such as if tag, where tag, for each tag is primarily understood to be applied to SQL statement splicing. Properties. These are externalizable substitutable properties that can be configured in a typical Java properties file instance or passed in through sub-elements of the properties element. Settings. These are externally important tweaks that modify the way that MyBatis behaves at runtime. Type aliases. A type alias is simply a shorter name for a Java type. It's only relevant to the XML configuration and simply exists to reduce redundant type of fully qualified class names. Type handlers. Whenever MyBatis sets a parameter on a prepared statement or retrieves a value from a result set, a type handler is used to retrieve the value in a means appropriate to the Java type. Object factory. Each time MyBatis creates a new instance of a result object, it uses an object factory instance to do so. The default object factory does little more than instantiate the target class with a default constructor or parameterized constructor if parameter mappings exist. If you want to override the default behavior of the object factory, you can create your own. Plugins. MyBatis allows you to intercept calls at certain points within the execution of a mapped statement. By default, MyBatis allows plugins to intercept methods calls of executor, update, query, flush statements, commit, rollback, get transaction, close is closed, and parameter handler, get parameter object, set parameters, result set handler, handle result set, handle output parameters, statement handler, prepare, parameterize, batch, update, query. The details of this classes methods can be discovered by looking at the full method signature of each and the source code which is available with each MyBatis release. You should understand the behavior of the method you are overriding, assuming you are doing something more than just monitoring calls. If you attempt to modify or override the behavior of a given method, you are likely to break the code of to break the core of MyBatis. These are low-level classes and methods, so use plugins with caution. Environments. MyBatis can be configured with multiple environments. This helps you to apply your SQL maps to multiple databases for any number of reasons. For example, you might have a different configuration for your development, test and production environments, or you may have multiple production databases that share the same schema and you would like to use the same SQL maps for both. There are many use cases. It is important thing to remember though, while you can configure multiple environments, you can only choose one per SQL session factory instance. You can see the environment here and transaction manager. There are two transaction manager types. That is type equal JDBC or manage that are included with MyBatis. JDBC, this configuration simply makes use of JDBC commit and rollback facilities directly. It relies on the connection retrieved from the data source to manage the scope of the transaction. Managed, this configuration simply does almost nothing. It never commits or roll back a connection. Instead, it lets the container manage the full lifecycle of the transaction. That is a JEE application server context. By default, it does close the connection. However, some containers don't expect this, and thus if you need to stop it from closing the connection, set the close connection property to false. Data source. The data source element configures the source of JDBC connection objects using the standard JDBC data source interface. Database ID provider. MyBatis is able to execute different statements depending on your database vendor. The multi-DB vendor support is based on the mapped statement database ID attribute. MyBatis will load all statements with no database ID attribute or with a database ID that matches the current one. In case the same statement is found with and without the database ID, the latter will be discarded. Mappers. Now that the behavior of MyBatis is configured with configuration elements, we are ready to define our mapped SQL statements. But first, we need to tell MyBatis where to find them. Java doesn't really provide any good means of auto discovery in this regard, so the best way to do it is to simply tell MyBatis where to find the mapping files. You can use class path relative resource references, fully qualified URL references including file :// URLs, class names or package names. Here you can see a sample mapper.xml, and mapper XML files have only a few first class elements. Cache configuration of the cache for a given namespace, cache ref reference to a cache configuration from another namespace, result map, the most complicated and powerful element that describe how to load your objects from the database result sets. Parameter map is deprecated, old school way to map parameters. Online parameters are preferred, and this element may be removed in the future, not documented now. And SQL, a reusable chunk of SQL that can be referenced by other statements. Insert, a mapped insert statement. Update, a mapped update statement. Delete, a mapped delete statement. Select, a mapped select statement. And here you can see SQL also. And here you can see a MyBatis -config.xml file here as example, and you can see properties. This file is linked with is connected to properties, settings, type aliases, type aliases, type handlers, object factory, plugins, environments, database ID provider, and mappers. Environments are connected to transaction manager and data source, and this has one environment here. And mappers are connected to cache ref, result map, parameter map. Now this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much for watching it.